Simone. I am excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be tackling and trying to work our way through something that I see as particularly an interesting mystery that I don't know if I have a formal thesis on what's causing it yet, but it is when I look at, the urban monoculture from which, modern leftist culture derives itself, where it holds beliefs that I would say appear to an outsider to be borderline theological, and it is a sin to go against these particular beliefs. Most frequently, these beliefs fall into a few categories. Environmentalism is a really big one. Another one is trans politics is a really big one. And then another one is genetics is a really big one. And I'm like actually like sort of surprised because not all of these things are like intrinsic to a leftist worldview. How they arrived and consolidated around these particular areas where they most frequently say things that just like on face value or was like the littlest bit of research are not true. This can be, in genetics, it's like, well, everyone has exactly the same capabilities, and it's like they very obviously don't. Like if you do even the basis look at science, some of our proclivities and traits have a heritable component. Like that's a weird thing to claim, and people can be like, oh well, this is like downstream of like fears about like Nazism and eugenics and stuff like that. And I'm like, maybe, but it's weird that it's so core to the way they see the world. And then with environmentalism, there's this form of not real environmentalism, but aesthetic environmentalism. I persistently see them retreat to, where like they're taking down like nuclear power plants in Germany, despite their only other source of energy being like Russian oil, which is like obviously dirtier, but like as environmentalists, we're anti-nuclear. Like, and it's not just that, it's also like when I mention something like this is like reporters frequently have like a visceral reaction when I tell them fertility collapse will affect people's lives more in the next 100 years than global warming will. And they're like, are you sure you don't want to restate that? Like they see this as like an absolutely insane thing to say. Like I'm saying the sky is red when I say global warming is not the most important thing. Or they're like, well, don't you care about like a huge collapse in the number of species, like a mass extinction? And I'm like, a mass extinction is bad. Like it's not awesome. There are consequences of a mass extinction. They're not existential consequences. Like it's bad. Like it's not great. I'm not aiming for it, but it's not, threatening to human survival or even the existing way that we structured our civilizations in the way that they seem to be like implying it is. And I don't think that they really believe it is either. They're not afraid of a mass extinction because of humans. They're afraid of a mass extinction because the mass extinction matters. So as somebody who I think you maybe used to genuinely hold some of these beliefs, maybe you can explain to me sort of how they work and where they're coming from.
I think maybe a lot of people steeped in the urban monoculture, super progressive, modern religion have this modern version of noblesse oblige that they're indoctrinated in, that leads them to believe that their purpose is to protect anything that is perceived as less capable of defending itself than they are. That the last person for them to defend is anything close to them because they come from this position of privilege. So it's different from the old concept of noblesse oblige, which I think had a little bit more of a self-preservation instinct. This one's a more like suicidal form of noblesse oblige, if that makes sense. That's just like, I don't matter, I am wretched, and I must protect all that which is relatively more defenseless.
That's a really interesting point. So essentially, they ascribe automatic moral value to whatever they perceive to be the weaker party.
Greater victimhood holds higher moral value. And that is indeed, I think, why Oppression Olympics kind of went out of hand, because I think some people have a deeper instinct to still want to be at the top of a dominance hierarchy, and they realized intuitively that they could only be at the top of the dominance hierarchy by being more of a victim. And that's why you get everything from people playing Oppression Olympics to wealthy to middle class teenage girls becoming spoonies and playing at Depression Olympics by
this
getting
explains
sick.
a lot. Yeah, that part explains where you get this like invented trans identity, and I think that like
It also explains why in those heat maps, for example, and sort of research of the progressive versus conservative brain, progressives hold more things as having moral weight that are not their family, their immediate community, and themselves.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
But there's more than just that. I think there's an inherent distrust of advancement and the concept of manifest destiny or conquering the natural world. And I think this is why among progressive circles, the book Sapiens took on so much. I've never heard a conservative talk about Sapiens.
Yes.
And be like, oh, Sapiens.
My dad.
And like a big aspect or thesis of Sapiens, so it's admittedly been almost 10 years since I've first read it, is that it made me so angry.
It's just wrong.
It just sort of talks about how everything kind of went downhill after agriculture and our teeth got horrible and we lived in stressful environments and we lived in diseased cities and it was just, oh, it was so bad. And like, oh, somehow our hunting and gathering period was so wonderful. And I think the reason why that resonated so much with educated progressive audiences is that there is this inherent mistrust of modernity and of conquering, for example, nature. And I think this is also seen in the contrast between the way that conservatives have historically engaged with the environment and conservation versus how progressives have engaged with the environment. So conservatives are all like, yes, conservation, like let's go out hunting, like let's go out camping, let's enjoy conquering nature and protect it so we can keep conquering it again because it's so freaking
our
fun.
training simulator. We can't disrupt it.
Yeah, like let's keep it around because it's really, really great. And then progressives are more like, no, let's tear down our nuclear plants, our modernity. Let's tear down our cities. Let's tear down our modern infrastructure. In some cases, it's literally, engage in degrowth and tear down our economies and civilization to let nature take back over. And of course, the extreme version of this is anti-natalism. Wouldn't it be great if a comet wiped out all humans? Wouldn't it be great if all humans died?
Which is a surprising number of progressives believe. When we did our survey in the United States, 17% of respondents said the world would be better without any humans. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think that it's that combination of this modern noblesse oblige, I am wretched and everything outside me that has higher victimhood status or less agency is more important and takes precedence over my needs. And remember, it took you like 7 years to convince me that I was not the dumbest, lowest value person of everyone. Like this was deeply ingrained in me. And it took so much work on your part to convince me that
unspectacular. And I was like, no, you are spectacular. You are one of the most desirable humans on earth. And one of the most talented humans on earth. And
I just like literally though, I would see someone, who had a lot, like very serious problems and just assume that they were better, smarter, more agentic than me. Like it was, I think some people will hear that and be like, I don't know, she's a 4, she's mid, she's not what Malcolm says, he's wearing husband goggles. No, this was actually dysmorphic. I'm not saying,
hold on. I'm not even talking about attractiveness here. I'm talking about competence.
Intelligence, competence. Yeah. Agency, all of that. I thought that I was lesser and more wretched. And so like, if anyone were to say something like, well, that's not true, or I disagree, I'd just be like, okay. And that was,
and I made her play this game at Stanford when she went to Cambridge, because I sent her there for graduate school. I was like, okay, Cambridge is like the best place, right? And I was like, every day you got to tell me if you met anyone smarter than yourself, because you were at least able to judge that, like more interesting, smarter than yourself. And she just never did. And I was like, okay, so this is supposedly where the smartest and best people in the world like go. If you're not finding people better than you here. And now, we get invited to events like Hereticon and stuff like that, right? Where like some of the wealthiest people in the world, who run like major funds and stuff like that. Like it's really run by Mike Solana and Peter Thiel. They go out and they invite like whoever they think is changing the world most. So it's bringing together like literally from a top down, like the most agentic people. I mean, I'd say like within that environment of the women in that environment, you're easily in the top 50%. in terms of I'd say like intelligence and agency and interestingness. And so that's wild because that's already like a super pre-selected crowd. And so I think that yeah, you really struggled to be like, oh, I'm actually like, competent, right?
But I think that's pretty pervasive in this culture, and that's another
Yeah,
important note
because
and part of this.
that's really interesting actually, because the culture values a lack of status so much, like a victimhood mindset so much, that it doesn't really give you the tools to see yourself as anything but, to see yourself as something other than like you're only supposed to go into everything expecting the least of yourself, which is yeah, I have a story I remember about this that you would find comical, Simone, which is the first time I went to buy condoms, I was like, well, I'm like a normal whatever person, so I should buy small condoms, which now,
Not
as somebody
accurate.
who slept around a lot, I'm like,
Wouldn't
oh,
work.
that was a very, very big mistake.
That must have been a deeply uncomfortable thing to discover when you
I know
first
they just immediately broke, but
out.
that's what I thought because I was like, oh, I'm average. I'm well, not even average. To assume I'm average is to assume too much of
No, hold
myself. I
on.
must be a little below average, right? Because that's. I think you're right. Yeah, we're taught that that's a value to not have pride in yourself.
No, it's not even. So to a certain extent, we're taught to value things that are lesser and victimy, but we are also demoralized. And I think some people end up playing oppression Olympics because they put the two together. They're like, oh, I'm demoralized, but also I can leverage this to gain status. I never made that connection. You never made that connection.
Well,
But
I
some
think it's a
people do, and they've
subtle
exploited the system.
underground connection, that is rewarded subconsciously, but a lot of people don't realize because I think a lot of people like genuinely, I think the vast majority of trans people do not realize that they are being treated with a special degree of status within urban monoculture environments. They genuinely are unable to see the systemic privilege they have over cis people. They genuinely think that like what's going on around them is a form of oppression, and I think it's because they see you remember there's a great chart of women and men, progressives, right, but women specifically, who today think that being a woman severely damages their prospects of being successful in life.
Well, I think
And
people
it's
have come to
going
equate
up.
literally life just being hard sometimes, being alive being hard sometimes, to oppression.
No. So over 50% of progressive women, I remember we were looking at a chart, think that women are systematically discriminated against when it comes to getting into college. Like, that's insane considering women make up like the vast majority of college goers these days, right? So here you can see two graphs titled Trends and Perceptions of Discrimination Against Women Amongst 12th Graders by Sex and Ideology, 1976 to 2022. And you can see that female liberals, the purple line here, to the question, to what extent do you think your sex will prevent you from getting the kind of work you would like to have, went from around 40% in 2010, which is ridiculously high, but whatever, to 75% as of like 2024 or 2022. Like, why is it going up so much? They're just being brainwashed, and you can see in other groups it's going down. Then in perceptions of discrimination against women, again, you see it going way up after the 2010s in both male liberals and female liberals. Like they think, oh yeah, women, they have it so hard in college because it's so, maybe because they make up a larger portion of the population or something in college. I don't know.
I could see college being harder with more women being present.
Yeah, but the reality is that
Actually, no. It was always the dudes on the group projects who made life miserable. Get back.
They did. Yeah, that is an interesting point.
I want the Lisa Simpsons. I want other people who are as like do-goody as I was. I hated the dead weight. Screw you guys.
Then you get me on a group project, and I always just like, all right, this is how we're gonna do. I was actually really good at that stuff.
You were a major, like you did disproportionately. You were very unusual.
No, not even that. I was very good at splitting up work and making sure people did.
Yeah, you made them functional. You weren't the girl who was just like, oh, I'll do it all. and everyone else just is quiet. You were like, you do this, but you also, like, because you did that, you were disproportionately doing more work.
I guess I never felt that way. I was taking more rewards, I'll tell you that. I know. I in college, I was running like every society. I was like president simultaneously of like multiple large societies on campus, and no one had ever done that.
Well, good
And of course,
leaders know how to recognize talent and leverage it and delegate well. That's good.
I guess I wanted power or whatever. Like I liked
There's
doing it.
there's
Again,
that.
I wanted it for my resume to get
Your
into
power hunger had nice negative externalities.
with negative externalities or positive externalities.
Sorry, nice positive externalities.
But okay, let's focus on environmental stuff. Like, I still don't fully. I guess what you're saying is that environmentalism, from a progressive perspective, they see like imperialism is bad, like the expansion of European culture and with it industrialization is bad.
Progress, just human intervention. And I actually think so. We talk about antinatalism and anti-human sentiment as being a novel advent. I think it has deeper and older roots than that. And I think that it was first manifested as a hatred of human advancement, imperialism, and manifest destiny. That it ultimately was about anti-human sentiment and this resentment of humans conquering nature and conquering natural environments, and that looped into environmentalism and was combined with this, I think, Christian derived, but I'm going to say corrupted Christian sentiment derived adoration of victimhood.
I don't know if the victimhood adoration, like a lot of people have made this claim that it comes downstream of Christian culture or like Protestant culture. I don't know if I believe that.
Why? On what grounds?
So it seems to work all by itself without the Christian culture.
I wasn't certainly from Christian culture.
You want to protect the weakest thing because that's how you prove that you're the best, right? Like that you're not doing anything wrong, And it comes from, if you just make this mindset where like, well, the Gazans are weaker, therefore they're in the right. And you're like, well, they do like torture gay people. Like, are you okay with that? And they're like, well, they don't, because a weak person can't be evil. Like, there's this understanding that the morality of a group is there's never like a case in which a weak person is a bad person. And there's never a case in which a weak community or group is abusing other communities.
No matter their crimes. And if their crimes were horrendous, well, it was because of what we've done to them.
I mean, you see this with the grooming gangs and the grape gangs of the Muslims that you have around Europe right now. They're like really prevalent and like capture and grape lots of girls. Or the case in the United States where you had a group of black teens who invited over a white teen with like mental disabilities and like beat him near to death or something. And like the progressives were like cheering this as like like them winning. Like, you keep seeing this of well, because they're in X group, and obviously the real weaker person is the white. The real weaker person are the Israelis who were captured. The real weaker person is the person who happens to be born gay in Gaza. But it is I think, a larger community. Like, they're not able to see this on the individual level. They try to look at the community level in terms of how they structure this ideology, and then say, okay, so the weaker individual at the community level is the individual that's deserving of higher status, and therefore we just assume that everything they're saying is right. It's very much like the believe all women thing and stuff like that, right? Like, including Israeli women who are being raped in Gaza. Well, not them, they're not, So the way it sorts, I'm trying to think like hierarchically how it sorts. Well, this also comes to, whether it's genetics or culture thing, but like genetically and culturally, we're all the same. There's no differences in us. And this explains where and I've mentioned this in previous episodes, but it's worth reiterating, why the urban monoculture always ends up turning to anti-Semitism and against the Jews, because it explains all human differences, because it doesn't believe in genetics and it doesn't really believe in cultural differences in proficiency. It believes all differences in groups must come from one group discriminating against another group or exercising some form of like, power over another group or cheating in some way. And so, because Jews disproportionately succeed in economic and academic contexts, they must be cheating, right?
Right.
And I think that at the end of the day, so long as Jews have the Jewish exceptionalism, i.e., achieving at an unusual rate within multiple fields, they will be seen as the core oppressor group, especially due to their smaller size, because they're like, well, look at their disproportionate success and smaller size, and they don't fit into any of our special categories. So, we need to get rid of them. And I think that many people were surprised how hard the urban monoculture turned against the Jews, and they expect this to be a short-lived phenomenon tied to this war that they're having right now. And I don't think it is. I think it's going to be a persistent shift.
Oh, dear.
Well, I mean, it's good more broadly because it brings the Jews who believed that the progressives were their friends into the sort of new right cause, into the pronatalist cause, into the persistent alliance.
I think it's causing two things. I think it's causing some Reformed Jews who are progressive to completely disown their
Yeah, but they're not
association
having
with
kids.
Judaism. Yeah.
They'll be gone soon anyway.
Yeah, probably.
And then what's the other thing?
And yeah, the rest will just drop. But I don't know. I think it's really hard for some people to accept that they're no longer part of the urban monoculture. There's a lot of fear around that.
Yeah, that the urban monoculture has turned on. Well, I think it's, you were talking about this and some people on Blue Sky who are trying to be like, well, the Collinses aren't really that bad because we went viral on there recently. But they're progressive, right? And so they're trying to explain this. And they dealt with like major cognitive dissonance. And someone was like, why is this happening? And oh my God, this is like actually like what is that? Anyway.
What?
There was like a white line on my glasses.
Oh.
This is actually like a thing that's happening. And I think that the reason is because especially some women, and this is where I see this happening the most, have such a like instinctual desire to fit in with whichever the dominant culture is. They struggle to think outside of that box.
Yeah, specifically an argument that she was trying to make was that they were saying, well, they've been to conferences with bad people. They didn't use that word; they used other words. But they've been to conferences with bad people. Therefore, they are bad people. And she's like, well, how are you going to change the minds of bad people if you never talk to them? And they're like, ah. But then she felt like somehow that was a weak argument. It's not a weak argument. Like if you don't engage with people that you disagree with, how are you ever going to expose them to ideas that might change their minds? And yet she somehow was like, well, that was a dumb idea. I can't believe I said that. That's embarrassing.
No, the urban monoculture really protects itself by creating a cultural norm around not engaging with outside ideas and not exposing yourself to outside ideas. And that's what we're seeing here is this. It is a very powerful norm from like
I think it's about social contagion. Just like there's something, and I don't understand it. There's something going on with social contagion.
No. So the point being, Simone, is that the urban monoculture has developed a pattern of isolating anyone who might have engaged with an outside idea. That's what they're trying to do to us. They're like, oh, these people appear to be immune to the cultural virus. These people appear to be able to engage with outsiders. If they engage with outsiders, they might bring some idea into this larger mimetic cluster, which is dangerous to it. So we can't engage with them. The easiest way to protect your ideology is to never engage with the ideas of the people you disagree with. And I think that that's what's happening there. And this is why, you persistently see, in studies that have looked at this, is that conservatives have a much easier time modeling progressives than the other way around, is that they literally build a wall. And that's one of the most interesting things about debating with progressives on, policy or whatever, is they're like, you guys are Nazis and racists. And it's like, well, I mean, right? This is just like, you're going to lock up women and re-enslave black people. And it's like, well, that hasn't happened, right? So that doesn't appear to be where we're going. And they really struggle with the idea that the world that we're living in, under the Trump administration, isn't the world that they said we're fighting against the Trump administration to prevent, right? Like their idea of the other side is so fictionalized that they have trouble engaging with it in any way, but it needs to be fictionalized, because if they did engage with it, they'd understand that the urban monoculture is at its core very imperialistic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is. I was talking with a reporter recently, and I was like, okay, so you understand when I talk to somebody in the urban monoculture, and I'm like, well, the people in Africa who you claim to love so much, they have very different rules around gender roles in marriage, and very different rules around a woman's role, and very different ideas around, gay people, and very different views on what's like moral and what should happen after death, etc. And they are thinking in their heads, well, I mean, of course, one day, every one of their churches will be flying the what do we call the flag?
Colonizer's
The
flag.
colonizer's flag, and this is the new weird pride flag. Every church in Africa is going to be flying this, and they're all going to have our idea about gender roles in marriage, and they're all going to have our idea about how you should raise your children, corporal punishment, if that's what they do now. They're all going to have our idea around, gay, they're all going to have our idea about everything, right? And it's like, well, they functionally eradicated their culture. There is nothing more imperialist than that perception. And I think that that's the irony of the urban monoculture. It is, of all cultural groups, the most supremacist, in that they believe themselves to be naturally superior to all others, the most imperialistic. Other groups are supremacist, but they are supremacist with qualifications. Like evangelical Christians, for example, have a respect for Jewish culture, right? Like frequently, right? Like they're like, oh, we got to help them rebuild their temple. Like they have this degree of like, let's work together. The urban monoculture doesn't. It sees everyone else as basically like savage monsters, like completely dehumanized.
Well, very patronizing too.
Yeah.
And also
Half
misleading
beast,
because
half
like,
man.
oh, we respect your culture. We're the only ones who respect you. But like secretly, we're gonna change all of your savage ways. I mean, you'll see the light, of course. You'll do this of your own free will, but we will cure you and in a very creepy way.
I mean, it's such a beautiful dystopia to live through because, we know they're going to lose at the end of the day, right? Like that's so, I can't imagine living through this and seeing them in positions of power and feeling like, oh my God, they could actually succeed in this like insane conquest where they eradicate all of the cultural diversity of our planet. And one day everyone just thinks like them, and yet they still believe they're the victims in all this. It's literally like almost the most evil conceivable perspective, to both see yourself as a victim while systemically oppressing those other than you.
Yeah, not great. But I mean, I think it really just comes down broadly to these things of anti-humanity and victim elevation. I don't know how else to explain it.
Well, anti-industry, I think, as well. I mean, we really, when we chose
Anti-industry is anti-humanity. I mean, industry is the most human thing. It is finding more efficient ways. It is the prefrontal cortex. Industry is an emergent property of the prefrontal cortex. Take away the prefrontal cortex and there is no industry.
Yeah, but I think, you look at our that we use in the Techno-Puritan stuff, and we use in the Hardy A Foundation and everything, and it's a gear, right? Like it represents industry. It represents innovation and moving forwards. And if I had a second one, it would be like a factory pumping out smoke. You know what I mean? Like the idea of a progress as defined in the age of the Enlightenment, in the industrial revolution, in how that's continuing with AI, and whatever it comes to symbolize AI in the same way that a billowing factory represented industry during the industrial revolution. That is what we stand. And it's also why we're so antagonistic with individuals who want to belittle, the same way in the past somebody might have belittled industry and been like, oh, well, everything hand woven is better, the loom, what a joke, that's never going to catch on. And that's what I feel with people talking about AI art and traditional artists and AI, whatever. That's why we're so interested in getting in AI, was like our AI education system and our AI gaming system, and these, which I'm really excited about. We'll see if they, it'd be cool if we end up actually raising money for both. And
It'd be amazing if we do. I'm really excited. Well, hopefully we'll find out within the next 3 weeks. So we'll see. We'll see.
yes, yeah, it's what you just submitted the second application.
Yeah, I did.
This is so wild. If we both get in, it would be so wild. We might actually have to move the kids out there.
I'm pregnant, Malcolm.
You need to be at your local doctor's. I understand.
Yeah.
We'll find a way.
We'll find. I mean, we can commute a bit. We'll find. I'm committed to these projects, so we'll find ways to make it work for sure.
Yeah, I think we personally need to be there part of the time if we're going to build relations with the VC firm and continue to raise money.
100%. Yeah.
So we'll figure it out.
I'm there. No, I'm super there for this. I'm all about it. I'm very excited about this.
Anyway. Oh, by the way, if any of our listeners have VC firms, feel free to let us know that we can get warm intros on these projects. Because, yeah, I think that like the way that we view industry is the same way we view AI, where other people are like, oh, it's so slop, it's so whatever. It's like, well, then improve it, make it better, make it, like this has the potential to transform everything about being human. Like, why are you poo-pooing this? It's so like techno-optimism is, I think, the only path to true vitalism within humanity. There are these like reductive vitalisms, like Liver King, like get back to nature and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I think that the people, this is the interesting thing about the techno-optimists. Very few of the techno-optimists have turned out to be fraudsters. Common for fraudsters appear among the traditionalist optimist community, the ones who want to go back to nature and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I think that it's because these beliefs are less authentic. They're more about trying to sell to a specific audience or something like that. They're not really driven by this constant need to move humanity forward. They're driven by this need to move themselves forwards and their own ideology forwards.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, I think.
Anyway. Ugh. Any thoughts, Simone?
That I love you. And
steak tonight?
Yeah. Do you want steak with your fried rice reheated, or would you prefer to have steak with some other form of starch?
Fried rice reheated would be great. You did a pretty good job with that, and I think it'll taste good with the steak. And you are really good at cooking steak, by the way.
Thank you. That's really nice of you to say.
Maybe I think gyoza dipping sauce would taste really good with steak.
Okay, I'll make you gyoza dipping sauce.
Is it hard to mix up? Or
no, it turned out, like, I know I gave you this huge, like, when you asked me to make it from scratch, it wasn't that hard. So I think
it's just soy sauce and then
it's soy. No, it's equal parts soy sauce, white wine vinegar, and sesame oil. Plus, you can and probably should add garlic, ginger, and red pepper flakes.
Okay, so I'd make a change to it going forward. Soy sauce, sesame sauce, a splash of white wine vinegar.
Okay, so half the amount. So like 1 teaspoon of each of those, then half a teaspoon of the white wine vinegar because you felt that was too heavy. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, off I go. And I'm going to speak with a journalist while I do it. So don't.
I love that you do that. Who are you speaking with tonight, my sweetheart?
Can't remember.
I don't care. Whatever. Do your thing. Love you.
I love you too.
Be sure to tell her that you're a Nazi.
They know already.
They know.
Sadly, the truth is out there. It's Mein Kampf. What can I do? Off I go.
Simone, in private, you always use words like, it's Mein Kampf. Or she's like, we need some Lebensraum.
Our kids don't give me enough Lebensraum. I need to eat my dinner. They don't.
You are going to get us in so much trouble one day.
Never. I'm not going to get us in trouble. I'm not going to get us in trouble. I'm fine. I'm not the risk taker.
You were just on NPR today. You did a great job with that, I'm sure.
We'll see. I bet it's going to be on YouTube, and it's just all going to be comments. I'm actually going to check now if they like put it on. And I can almost guarantee you, like, the top ranked comments are going to be like, she's a Nazi. So WHYY, NPR, genetic. The ethics of screening and designer babies. But that was from 1 day ago. Yeah, so they I don't think they've brought mine live yet. This is probably part of a series they're doing. So I one of the things that bioethicist mentioned, by the way, on that interview, where I was like, wait, is this true? He was like, well, people might screen out for albinism, or he was talking about that. And he was like, well, but like, it's kind of interesting that like 7 Nobel laureates have albinism. And I'm like, what? Is this true?
That seems like bias. I'd be like, that seems like bias.
Yeah, they're so white that they have to be smart laureates. It's like it seems super racist or something. Like list of, hold on. Okay.
It's like models with that weird
But with
vertebral.
yeah, but yes, with yeah.
It's like that's the result of bias. That's not inclusivity.
I know, but it looks really cool. I think the reason why like people think it's woke, but no, it's because it's cool. And that's the unifying thing of runway models isn't that they're beautiful, it's that they look very distinctive. And
Wait,
what's more
hold on.
distinctive?
If we made our kids all albinos, like that'd be so cool for the techno-Puritans. Like all white skin and red eyes, like
well, but it's
freaking
really
people out, have to
there are
stay
too many
inside all the
complicated
time.
like not having any melanin is such a risk with outdoor exposure. I mean, as much as
but outdoor exposure is such a risk to productivity. I love you so much. I love your like eye roll there. That was intense.
Is it true though? I'm asking perplexity. No, it says no Nobel laureate is known to have albinism.
So you just made it up. Sorry, I gotta delete that.
Do people just lie on the internet?
People just lie on NPR. You just go on NPR and tell lies?
Go on. Yeah.
Apparently, yes.
I mean, did I mishear him?
Well, you'll hear.
Oh, Perplexity's looking into it. Deep research. So if it's out there, we'll find it. No. There's no evidence that people with albinism are disproportionately represented among major award winners. In fact, the available information suggests the opposite. People with albinism are underrepresented in most high-profile fields, including entertainment, politics, science.
But wait.
Octavian?
What?
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
You're home awful early.
You want to have him talk to the fans really quick?
What I brought?
You brought surprises. Do you want to talk to the YouTube
Look
people?
what I got. This is my present. What I've been doing so good. Stacey gave me this present. Stacey gave me this present because I was so good.
What else do you have in your box of mysteries?
Oh, look what I got. Delivery.
What is it, my friend?
Look. Oh no.
Yes, but what's? Oh, I haven't. You want me to open it?
Yeah. Let's see. Hey, check if it's check if
it's the underwear your sister requested. She
hey, can you ask him to tell people to like and subscribe?
Hey, Octavian, can you tell the people to like and subscribe?
Like and subscribe to our video if this is good.
Why should they like and subscribe?
Because my dad told me they can make money and they really want to be rich. So I want to subscribe first.
Because you want money. Well, you heard the boy.
Yes.
So, like Stacey gave me special permission to have this truck, so like tomorrow I can put my army man, like my 10 army guys in here. They can drive to the green team to defeat the green team like this. Bye. I'll see you a little bit. I see you like learn about this. Goodbye.
And that's over
it.
and out from Octavian.
Love you, Simone. Have a good call with that journalist, okay?
Thanks.
Do you want me to take Octavian and deal with him?
Yeah, if you could, so that I can start dinner and talk with her, because otherwise she won't.
Oh, it's so windy out there.
You're such a good gardener. You're so pretty.
Just can't stop watching that AMV on loop. It's so good. It's one of this little shark girl, Gora. I'll put it in the comments below if I remember or hear. But it is, it's like you see these young rebellious girls, and I just like so hope my daughter grows up to be like this. And I know she will, because I've already said, like, it's very clear.
They will be.
I've been reflecting on, I was talking to you about this, is how deep the desire in me is to have the type of young children who, in my fantasies are first and foremost, like, mischievous rule breakers and not like, and I know that other parents seem to want like obedient rule followers. And I don't know, if this is genetic. I don't know if this is cultural. Simone said it's just because I want somebody like myself. And, that's like a way of, I guess, culturally passing on.
It's not just that. It's that you have an extreme aversion, disgust reaction to people who follow rules that you think aren't logical.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be disgusted by your children. So obviously you like it the other way.
Do you fantasize about the kids being like rebellious and spunky and mischievous? No.
Who cleans up their messes for the most part?
What do you want them to be? Like when you think of
successful, I like to think about the businesses that they start. Like I was telling you this morning, like tourist
Titan and Industry starting a business together. And,
yes.
The two next ones, the names that we're probably going to go with. Oh, you won't let me say them because you haven't bought the URLs.
I need to get their like email addresses.
Very, very frustrating.
You bopped him with the soccer bopper. Toasty, you gonna get him back?
Now I'm even stronger.
Oh yeah. Oh, Toasty, you gotta power up. Whoa. You gotta boost your power. Bam, bam, bam.